Temperatures so far here in Ireland have been around the long-term average, though in comparison with the past few years it's felt considerably cooler. The farmers have commented that the season started perhaps a month or two later than usual. Paulownia love hot, sunny weather, and for comparison, Eastern Europe, summer temperatures in Eastern Europe are perhaps 10 degrees C above those in Ireland. So very much a commercial, Paulownia are very much a commercial proposition in Eastern Europe. Here in Ireland, I don't think they are going to be a commercial timber tree, though I'm still keen that everyone experiments. This one's been a strong tree from the get-go. From when it was first planted, it's a Paulownia, Paulownia Paulownia, and it's always been one of the most vigorous. Temperatures here in Ireland and weather generally in the past couple of weeks or so has improved, and it's easily grown 50 centimetres in that time. I'm sometimes asked about cloning Paulownia, and initially I was really keen on the idea. However, 3 years after planting my first Paulownia, these going down were planted July 2021. These going up were planted September the same year. And as you can see, there's huge variation in the growth. So many other factors must be at play other than the simple genetics of the plant. These are just so much more lush and vigorous than the rest. Perhaps they're getting more sunlight, they certainly are. However, these that were planted September the same year should be around the same height. They're getting at least the same amount of sunlight. Certainly those down the bottom have a couple of factors in play. Less sunlight, but also, and it was very noticeable this year, they're far more exposed to the cold, severe, biting northerly winds. To mitigate the impact of the cold northerlies, I've been planting eucalyptus. This is Eucalyptus parvula, very frost hardy, very wind resilient. I'm going to experiment with another couple of varieties behind the fence here, globulus, which are very fast growing, and also what I'm terming Eucalyptus Galway, which I think are a cross between Gunnii and Glossines. But the seed was collected here in Ireland from trees that were growing here in Ireland. So I'm very interested to see how they grow, get on here in my patch. They just have fabulous root systems. So fingers crossed they'll be happy with the rain. And Paulownia aren't great with damp winter conditions either, so that might be another factor which is affecting their growth. Another factor which will impact growth rates, whether you're growing Paulownia or eucalyptus, is vegetation. With the warm weather, everything grows, not just the trees, and vegetation, unwanted vegetation, can quickly swamp, hamper the growth of fresh seedlings, and indeed might actually kill them off, smother them. Initially I was really keen on packing the grass cuttings around the freshly planted seedlings, and I've completely changed my mind about that strategy. Here's why. When the grass cuttings, and this is applicable to wood chip as well, when organic matter rots down, it sucks the nitrogen out of the ground, out of the soil, making it unavailable for the fresh young seedlings which need the nutrition and need the nitrogen. Another factor, and I don't actually have any evidence for this during the warmer summer months, however, towards the end of last year I planted Eucalyptus globulus in this small triangle here, and I packed a lot of grass cuttings around the seedlings. I've since replanted, but out of the original batch only 2 survived. This one at the front here, which perhaps was less impacted because it was at the edge of the zone that I spread the grass cuttings on, and that one at the back, which again at the edge of the zone. Everything in the middle here died, so as you can see I've replanted. And my strategy now is to take the vegetation down as close to the soil surface as possible. As you can see from the inset, mow it, hoover it up, scarify it, mow it again, rinse, repeat until I got it down to pretty much within a cut 2 on my lawnmower, and this will at least give the seedlings 4 to 6 weeks grace to try and become established. I don't want to waste the grass cuttings and all that valuable organic material, so I've been dumping it in amongst the more established Paulownia that I have. I don't think it'll make any difference to them. Any initial loss of nitrogen availability will be made up for in a year or so once the grass cuttings have rotted down and start to release that nitrogen back into the ground. Talking of nitrogen, Paulownia are hungry trees. Commercial plantations often have networks of piping for irrigation and drip feeding installed before any trees are planted. A couple of years ago I was mixing in a very rich organic fertiliser with the compost that I used to plug up my seedlings. It had a very detrimental effect on the eucalyptus seedlings, probably burning the roots somewhat. The Paulownia, however, thrived on it. I didn't take note at the time, however I stopped using that fertiliser, and these elongata, which didn't benefit from it, are very disappointing. Their growth has been very disappointing. I'd have expected these after a year to have been at least half a metre tall. So I'm going to replace the elongata that I've lost, plant a few more additional ones and a new variety Fortunii, which I'll plant to cover this entire area with Paulownia, and that'll complete my plantation. From the beginning I'm going to feed them a nitrogen rich liquid feed. I sell and plant root trained tree plugs. The thing you've got to note about these is do not break apart or disturb the root system. Just make a suitable size hole in the ground, hold the plug in the middle and gently firm compost around it. Using one of these earth augers and a battery operated drill, you will find you can plant 60 plus plugs in an hour. Putting a scoop of poultry manure into the bottom of each hole is a good idea. Well, as I say, just hold the plug in the middle, put some compost around it, firm in and give it a water. And this has liquid feed in it, so this will be very rich. I finished planting these last night, 52 in total, and it did take me about an hour. It was a warm, sticky night and the midges were out in force, so I stopped filming. I'm really pleased to have completed my Paulownia plantation. I now have around 180 trees. More or less as soon as I'd finished planting the first batch of seed grown Paulownia here at Clonsnorta, I started to get negative comments and feedback. The inference was that the trees grown from the seed of clones wouldn't retain the parental characteristics. The Nordmacs haven't been immune to the cold northerlies we experienced here during May and June. However, As you can see from the insect drone footage, they've grown more consistently than all the other varieties. Paulownia in this first row, and the only tree Paulownia from the first planting 3 years ago that has died has been a Paulownia in this front row, which, as I say, in fairness, is exposed to the northerlies. Next, the Nordmax, which I've just spoken about. Then the Shantung, and Shantung have been pretty reasonable too. All hybrids those, and then these are tomentosa, and it's fair to say that the best growing have been the tomentosa, or the best specimens. Now, as you can see here, there's quite a lot of difference between the best of them and the rest. This Paulownia has been exceptional, so I guess if you were choosing one to clone, then that would be a good candidate. However, when you compare it to these, next one along's not too bad. Then these three are all much smaller, so I have to wonder again if there's something going on there, whether the drainage is just slightly better, some more nutrients in the ground, some other factor or reason. What's next? Well, in the short term, vegetation control, as I alluded to earlier on, is very important, and nothing beats getting in amongst it with your hands and clearing of the unwanted vegetation. For docks and other tougher vegetation, I highly recommend this Fisker's bullhook. It really does just slice through them effortlessly. And on my patch here I have whatever this is, might actually be willow shoots, but again it just snaps them, cuts through them like butter. That's in the short term until they become established. In the medium to long term, I might start experimenting with technical cuts on some of the better specimens I have here and do the pruning that's required to get these very fast growing straight Paulownia trees that produce valuable constructional timber. However, I've recently discovered the health benefits of raw honey and other bee products such as propolis. It's suggested that Paulownia can take anywhere between 5 and 15 years to start flowering. These, as I say, are just over 3 years old now, and certainly there's no evidence that they're producing flower buds as yet. Still, when they do start flowering, I'm looking forward to the amazing display of purple flowers, and I'm sure all the bees around here will look forward to the rich pollen and nectar that they produce. In the meantime, lots of my eucalyptus trees are producing flowers. Just fabulous to see. This is a Eucalyptus perenniana. This is Pulverulenta, and as you can see, just covered in flower buds. Fantastic. I don't know much about beekeeping. I'm just starting to research. I am, however, very keen to get a couple of hives and start producing my own honey and bee products. I know a little bit more about eucalyptus, and a member of one of the beekeeping societies here in Ireland, a committee member, suggested to me that Eucalyptus coriamba citriodora, lemon scented gum, would be a good choice for bees. I have to totally disagree. I don't think it will survive during the winter here in Ireland. Might survive on the southeast coast of Ireland. Certainly, I very much doubt they'll survive here on the west coast. Paulownia, however, started flowering a year and a half after being planted. As you can see from the inset, the bees absolutely love the flowers and they're very tough and hardy. No issues with surviving the severe cold snap at the end of 2022. There'll be no shortage of food for the bees during the summer months. This wildflower patch is really becoming a nice area. Lots of diverse types of wildflower, and all the pollinators besides the bees, they all have different mouth parts, so they all feed on different flowers. For those of you who might be interested in what happened to the Rod Y that I planted in December last year, they are growing, not particularly fast. This one's a bit better. As I say though, vegetation control is vitally important, and I won't be doing vegetation control in this area until the end of the summer when the wildflowers have stopped flowering. Just a fabulous area though, really love it. This is the area that I've earmarked for locating my beehives once I've learnt enough about apiary and acquired all the necessary kit. I haven't seen many honeybees this year. However, it's fabulous to see that some bumblebees have started nesting in the bank. I have over 20 varieties of eucalyptus growing here at Clonsnachta now, and they all flower at different times of the year, which is fabulous because it provides food for the pollinators and the bees more or less all year round. This is Dalrai ampliana, I think anyway. I've never been able to identify it accurately. However, it flowers later on in the year, so late autumn, early winter, and as you can see, it's covered in flower buds. This is Gunnii, and what I've observed so far is that these tend to flower late spring. Parvula, which I mentioned earlier on in regard to shelter screening for the Paulownia. Lots of flower buds on this, and I'm from memory, I wouldn't be 100% sure on this, but from memory, late autumn, early winter. This is subcrenulata. They haven't flowered yet, though it looks as though they're getting close to it. These flower buds have been developing now for over a year, I'd say, so perhaps late summer. Lots to look forward to. Thanks a mil for watching. Good luck.